Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Ravi Shastri ko gussa kyun aata hai? That too when ODI captaincy is wrested from Virat Kohli. There is some sort of grieving that is going on, saying that there should have been better communication, that he should have been told that he was being eased out of the ODI captaincy. You know, if you look at the past of the board, what I like to call as BICC, British India Cricket Company, it's been much more worse than what has happened now. At least now there appears to be some leeway for people to express their thoughts, but it wasn't like this before. I just want to take you back 50 years. 1968-69, New Zealand came visiting India. It was 𝗹𝘂𝗀𝘀𝘁𝗲. At that time, he used to be called Nawab of Pataudi because Pataudi was a state that he was the king or the prince, and he was enjoying the privy purse for some time at least. And they used to call him Nawab of Pataudi. Then he became Mansur Ali Khan Pataudi, of course. So in 68-69, the New Zealand team came visiting under Dowling, and the series was tied 1-1. The third test was in Hyderabad, and India would have lost it if it were not for the fact that rain intervened and that the ground staff didn't quite do a good job of cleaning up after a thunderstorm. So 1-1 draw, maybe honorable. Then the Aussies came, and under Pataudi, India lost 1-3. The last test was in Chennai. Second test saw the discovery of Gundappa Viswanath. He scored 0 in the first innings and 137 with 25 fours in the second innings. That was the drawn test in Kanpur. Now, after this test, the next series that India had was a tour of West Indies in 1971. I think it was sometime in the January timeframe of 1971. The then chairman of selectors, Vijay Merchant, decided that it was time for Pataudi to be dropped, and he chose Ajit Wadekar as the captain. 1971. Wadekar was the captain, and a young spinner from Tamil Nadu, Venkataraghavan, also known as Venkat, was the vice captain. 1971 series, Indian team went on to make history, winning a series in West Indies for the first time. Then they repeated that a few months later in England, same team, same captain, vice captain, and they defeated England 1-0 in a 3-test series. And then what happened was England came back to India. Even so, in home series those days, they wouldn't really tell you who the vice captain was, but it was assumed that Venkat was the vice captain. But because there were 4 spinners, Venkat was often out of the team than in. And it is believed that in team meetings, he was such a team person that when it came to choosing the playing 11, often, even though he was the vice captain, he would drop himself because he would say that the other 3 were in better form. This is the kind of camaraderie that existed between the 4 spinners. Nobody pulled a long face because they were not going to play. 1972-73, England came visiting and India defeated them, I think 2-1, could be 3-2, I think it is 2-1. Anyway, so after that, it was the turn of India to go back and play in England. 1974, early summer, it was a disaster in making. India lost 3-0, including the second innings in the second test at Lord's, where they were shot out for 42 on a cloudy morning. For that series too, Venkat was the vice captain, but he didn't get to play much, again because of the 4 spinners and room being there for only 3 spinners. I don't remember any single test where all the 4 played, but I could be wrong. Anyway, Venkat was a great fielder. He was a decent bat. He had a half century, and he was a very good bowler. Although you can say that as a bowler, perhaps E.A.S. Prasanna, the other off spinner, was slightly more talented, but then Prasanna's fielding wasn't his forte. He was often told as somebody who would escort the ball to the boundary. Just telling. I mean, it doesn't take away any of the greatness of him as a spin bowler. Anyway, so in 1975, it was the first World Cup, and guess who was called the captain who was made the captain. By that time, Ajit Wadekar had retired. Okay, actually, I'm jumping ahead of here. Let's go back to 1974. After the disastrous tour, Ajit Wadekar stepped down as the captain. In fact, Indian fans were so incensed that many players' homes were destroyed. I mean, stone pelting took place on many players' homes, including that of the captain, Ajit Wadekar. One of the grouses was that he did not return with the team. Well, Wadekar, in his defense, said that he had planned a vacation in America with his family after the trip, and therefore, when the series ended, he went and took a vacation to America. But, when you lose, the Indian fans are not so kind. So, his house got stoned, and so did many other players. And in 1974 winter, it was a time for the West Indies to come visiting. This team had a lot of talent who had not played Test cricket. Gordon Greenidge was making his debut in the first Test, and so was Vivian Richards or Viv Richards. Now, the first Test in 1974-75, Bishan Singh Bedi was dropped. And you know why? Because he did not get permission from the board to give an interview to the BBC on the debacle of the 1974 tour of India to England. Boom, they just dropped him. You know what happened? There was a lot of commotion, and in Bangalore, the first Test, there were a lot of slogans shouted, "No Bedi, no Test." But still, the Test went on. Bedi did not get played, and India played 3 spinners, Venkat, Prasanna and Chandrasekhar. Though India lost that Test, Chandrasekhar managed to get rid of Vivian Richards in relative quick time. I think Richards scored 4 and 4 or 4 and 0, single digit numbers. He dismissed him. Okay, now for that Test and that series, 𝗍𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗀 suddenly makes himself available to play, and then he is chosen as the captain. The first Test, 𝗍𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗀 plays, he gets hurt, so he is not going to play the second Test. By the way, on that series, there was no vice captain announced. So this is a habit that the board had. In those days, in home series, they did not announce who the vice captain was. The board of selectors chose Sunil Gavaskar as the captain in place of the injured 𝗍𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗀. Now, between the first Test and the second Test, there was a gap of a few days. And guess what? Sunil Manohar Gavaskar was facing up to the express bowler from Maharashtra, Pandurang Salgaonkar. I think the first or the second ball he faces, there's a crack in his thumb, and Sunil Gavaskar fractured his thumb. Thumb or in one finger, I don't remember exactly, but he was out of the next Test. So Sunil Gavaskar, the captain for the second Test, was not playing anymore, and the time was rolling. The Indian board did not announce who the captain was going to be for the second Test. Till the morning, nobody knew who was going to be leading India. Was it going to be Venkat? Or was it going to be Farooq Engineer? And there were some other team names also being thrown about. But eventually, who walked out to toss? It was Venkat as the captain. He was actually making his debut as a captain in that Test. Remember, I told you in the first Test, there was a controversy around Bishan Singh Bedi and they had to drop him. Well, second Test was in Delhi. Bedi was a Delhiite. They weren't going to drop him for the second Test. So he had to find a place in the playing 11. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. What happened was the playing 11 consisted of Venkat, the captain, Bedi, and surprise, surprise, Prasanna. I would have expected Chandrasekhar to play, but he did not play. The first innings, I think India won the toss and elected to bat and didn't score very many runs, 200 plus runs, and lost badly to West Indies. In the first innings, Vivian Richards scored 192 not out. Now, think about this. If Chandrasekhar had played that Test in place of Prasanna, would he have scored that many runs? Well, and would he have been a sensation that he became after that? Because remember, this was his second Test. The first Test he had failed. Anyway, so Vivian Richards scored 192 not out and India lost badly. For the third Test, 𝗍𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 was back as the captain. Venkat got dropped. They got in Chandrasekhar. So Chandrasekhar, Bedi and Prasanna played. And Patowdy, for whatever reason, he had clear preferences for Prasanna over Venkat. Whenever it came to choosing between the two, more or less he chose Prasanna. I can't explain why. But the interesting thing was the dropped captain was the 12th man for the third test. You know, in the recently concluded series in New Zealand against New Zealand, we were wondering whether Ajinkya Rahane would be dropped or would he be, you know, playing as a 12th man. In fact, what ended up happening was he was injured and dropped. But these are all optics. These days, I can never tell if somebody is injured. You know, it's a convenient way to try and, you know, make somebody, you know, set him down gently. Anyway, so this goes on for a long time, guys. So 1975 World Cup, guess who's the captain again? Venkat. And no Patowdy. And India had a disastrous outing in 75. Because what happened was in the first match against England, England scored 336 and India scored 130 something with Sunil Gavaskar carrying the bat for 60 overs, 36 not out. One day, 60 over game, 36 not out. Remember that. This is the kind of batting that Sunil Gavaskar displayed in that test. I mean, and in that match. And he, after that, he said that that was not the right thing to do. But India really didn't want to, they didn't have their heart in this ODI. It was a new concept then. And then some more years go, Venkat is in and out of the team. And then in 1979, it is time for India to go back and play in England. And this series was very interesting. India fell behind 1-0, but at the last game, I think last test, it was an oval, India came this close to winning that match. I think they fell short by like 8 runs or something like that. And the opening partnership was massive, and with Sunil Gavaskar and Dilip Vengsarkar, they got within 60 or 70 runs of the target, and then they both got out. And then there were some dubious umpiring calls, like Viswanath was given LBW when he was like 2 paces outside the crease. Still, the British umpire, who's supposed to do no wrong, gave him leg before wicket. Anyway, India fell short by 8 runs, and it was a draw. And then India was returning back, and there was the next series. I don't remember who they were going to play next, but Venkat was dropped as the captain, and guess how he came to know about it? It was the captain of the plane that the team was coming back in that announced, "Congratulations, Sunil Gavaskar, you are the new captain." How do you think Venkat would have felt? Do you think that he should have made a statement? Now it's 40 years since, and he has not opened his mouth about any of this stuff. He's always carried his chin high. He then went on to become a very respectable, reputed cricket umpire. And this man was a very disciplined player. Anyway, so what I am trying to say, the long and short of it is, the BICC has its own unique way of doing things. They don't really do things one way and then do things another way. This is really a bandit-like company. BICC, that's why I call it BICC, British India Cricket Company. It's anything goes, no rules, make up the rules along the way. They don't think they are answerable to the Supreme Court. They don't think they are answerable to the government. They think they are a private company and they do whatever they want. It is you, the viewer, who must decide whether you want to watch cricket or not. That's why I keep telling you that cricket has become a tamasha, a spectacle. Don't get too excited when India wins. Don't feel too dejected when India loses. Because I think in the upcoming India-South Africa series, there are going to be some surprises too. Thanks for watching. Do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Namaskar.
Thank you.